Hello, welcome to another edition of 5 Minutes with Joe. This is the fresh press just came out on Friday, and so it's hot off the press. Here we have it right here, and this is a really good resource for you to get some really good information, some good overview of what's going on in the produce world. You know, what's hot, what's not, what's expensive, what's inexpensive. And as we said last week, important to note that usually when things are inexpensive is when they're at their best quality. So something to really look forward to. So this gives us a really good overview. If you want a little more detail, here's another one that I use a lot. And this is called the Market Report from Produce Alliance. Very easy to get to on your computer, www.producealliance.com. And it's got tons of really good information. Like I said, if you wanted to get in more detail about what's going on in the world of produce. And speaking of detail, one thing I want to talk about, a couple things. One thing probably not so critical to most folks, but it is kind of interesting, is very cool weather growing season in Florida and Mexico not long ago, and it's caused some real issues. One of them is this celery. If you take a look at it, you can kind of see already what the problem is here. The stalk is coming up here. What's happening is the cool weather causes the celery to bolt, and what happens is the stalk comes up here and you're left with very little usable celery. So something to keep your eyes open for. I just picked this up at the grocery store and it was just like that. Another thing to think about right now is grapes. If you use grapes a lot, remember that grapes are transitioning now from Chile and they're transitioning to Mexico. So there's going to be a gap. So what that means to us is when there's a gap like that, the quality will probably go down, the price will go up. So when they say, a lot of times you'll be reading the report and say, oh, the markets are stronger. You go, oh, that's good, the markets are stronger. Actually, for you, that's not good. When markets are strong, that means the people who are selling it are getting a higher price for it. So you want the market to be loose is a better time for you. Something else to look at, keep in mind, is oranges. This is coming to the end of the navel orange season, and the Valencias will be gearing up. Navel oranges are strictly a winter crop, so as the winter winds down, hopefully, we hope fast since it's now spring, then the Valencias come on. Now the Valencias are a great juice orange. They can be sweet as well, probably not as sweet as a navel, and they're a little harder to peel. So in my mind, you can't do much better than a navel orange. Cantaloupe and honeydew right now, the bricks, and that's how they measure the sweetness, are very high. So cantaloupe is a good get right now. Between cantaloupe and honeydew, I tend to always like to veer towards the cantaloupe, because cantaloupe, you can just eyeball the flesh and you can tell that it's sweet or not sweet, or ripe or not ripe. Whereas with a honeydew, it's kind of a crapshoot. You really don't know what you're getting. Honeydew, probably half the time you'll get some. It can be almost like cardboard. So if I have a choice between the two, I'll go for the cantaloupe, and then maybe err on the side of a watermelon instead of a honeydew. Personal preference of mine. Peppers right now are coming in well. We have a couple of different peppers here that I want to show you, which is kind of interesting, because something you can tell about peppers, if you look at them, they tell a story to you. So if I was to put this up here right in front of the camera and let it sit there, you kind of see on the bottom there, you can see where there's kind of some scraping and scarring and scratching. That happens when the peppers are out in the field and the wind's blowing and they bang against each other or against the sticks that hold them up, and they get a little scratch and then it heals over. So that tells us this actually came out of a field. And this is actually USA, so more than likely this is probably from Florida. But what's interesting about that, on the other side of the coin, you'll have a nice red pepper, and it is pristine, and there's no gouges, no scratches, nothing. So what that tells me is, that this pepper was more than likely grown in a hothouse. And in fact, this pepper was grown in a hothouse in Canada. And I don't think the fields in Canada are that far along. So there's a lot of hothouse growing of peppers, and tomatoes too. A lot of them come out of hothouses. So that's that. Apples, something you consider about apples, watch the price fluctuate, and the price will fluctuate on apples, especially small sizes, depending on when school is in session, because the schools always want the smaller size apples for the kids. So as schools come to an end, you're probably going to see the price on smaller sized apples go down, because the demand will go down as well. So less demand, lower the price. Memorial Day, as we talked about last week, holidays can really affect how prices go. So Memorial Day will affect anything you can think of to barbecue with. That will probably be fairly up in price. So if you're putting together a barbecue and you're thinking, gee, if you wonder what would be great with a barbecue, strawberries, melons, all those things that go. So you'll see those prices probably will remain high. Markets will be strong, as they say. One thing I want to talk about especially today is blueberries. Blueberry season is started in earnest, and it begins in Florida, and it'll move north with the season. So you'll see the blueberries. Right now the blueberries probably coming from Florida. These particular ones are coming from California. So the southern areas are where the blueberries are coming from. Actually, Florida had some pretty cold and wet weather, so the blueberry harvest suffered, and the quality was not that great. So right now we're just seeing quality they'd say is fair, but the quality will improve as the harvest moves north. Next will be North Carolina, then there will be New Jersey, where blueberries came from, and then it'll go all the way up to British Columbia on the west coast. So blueberries are kind of unique because they're one of the few native berries to North America. The natives, Indians, relied on blueberries fresh and dried. They would dry them and grind them into a powder and rub them into meat to make pemmican. It's also said that the Pilgrims, if the Indians hadn't supplied the Pilgrims with a bunch of blueberries, they may not have made it through that first winter. So, very interesting. The Indians actually had a name for them. They called them starberries. And the reason they called them starberries is because on the end, the little thing on the end, it looks like a star. So they called them that. You can get them fresh. You can also get them frozen. Their blueberries are one of a great frozen fruit, because if you want to do like pancakes and so forth, you can do the pancake batter, drop the berries in frozen, and they come out just fabulous. I don't think I would recommend blueberries too much for the salad bar, and the reason is because on the salad bar, they're going to be, if you put them in a bowl and some of you are digging spoons into them or tongs, they're easily mush because they're pretty fragile. So I would recommend using this as a garnish on different items, like great with cake, ice cream, whipped cream. Also, when you're using them, what I recommend people do is pour them into your hand and then garnish, of course, with gloves on, of course, and then garnish them that way, rather than, because you can't really pick them out of there very well. So dropping them on whatever you're doing as well. There's also, if you're into blueberries and you like barbecue, there's a recipe in the recipe collection for a barbecue blueberry pork pie. So that's all for now. That's this week's Fresh Press, and like I said, the market report. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, and I'd be glad to answer whatever questions you have. Have a great week, and we look forward to seeing you next week.